She took the wrong luggage at the airport, unaware it belonged to a CEO who'd been waiting for a. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to today's story. At a busy airport in New York, Emma Brooks, a young woman in her late 20s, stood nervously by the luggage carousel, scanning the endless stream of bags with her eyes. She had just finished a long flight, exhausted and anxious, as her mind raced with thoughts of the upcoming blind date her best friend had arranged for her. She wasn't thrilled about it. In fact, she felt a little out of place. Her second-hand dress, scuffed shoes, and frazzled hair made her feel like she didn't belong at a fancy restaurant, and the thought of having to pretend to be someone she wasn't made her stomach turn. But she had promised Jenny she would go, and that was all she had left. As she waited for her luggage, her mind wandered. Emma had been working double shifts at the diner for months, barely scraping by. She dreamed of something more, a life where she could own an art studio, where she didn't have to worry about rent or bills every month. She needed this date to go well, or at least not be a total disaster. Suddenly, a large, black suitcase with a silver monogram caught her attention. It wasn't hers, but it was the same size as her bag. Without thinking, she grabbed it and made her way to the exit. She glanced around for a moment, but no one seemed to notice the mix-up. She didn't realize it, but she had just made a life-changing mistake. She stepped outside, pulling the suitcase behind her, and her phone buzzed. It was a message from Jenny. "Hey, I just saw Kevin walk in. He's sitting at table 7. Can't wait to hear all about it afterward." Emma froze. Kevin? That wasn't the name of the guy she was supposed to meet. Heart racing, she opened the message thread to double-check. No, it was true. She had grabbed the wrong suitcase. Panic set in as she realized she had no choice but to go back inside and face the awkwardness of her mistake. She quickly turned on her heels, ready to dash back into the airport, but then she paused. The man sitting across the room, the one with the expensive-looking suit, caught her eye. She froze. His sharp features and confident posture were impossible to ignore. He was a stranger, but something about him felt familiar. Was he waiting for someone? She shook her head and hurried toward him. "Hi, you must be Kevin," she said, forcing a smile. The man blinked, clearly surprised, before his eyes softened. Hi, Emma," he said, looking at her in a way that made her heart skip a beat. Emma's mind raced as she realized her mistake. She sat down awkwardly, trying to mask her embarrassment. "I know this is awkward. Blind dates are weird, right?" she said, laughing nervously. The man, whose name was Liam Parker, chuckled in response. "Right. Blind dates are something else," he said, glancing at her phone. There was an odd moment of silence before he added, "I'm sorry, but I think you're sitting at the wrong table." Emma's face turned beet red as she immediately stood up. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I sat at the wrong table. I was looking for Kevin." She rushed to grab her things, embarrassed beyond belief. But Liam's voice stopped her. "It's all right," he said softly. "It happens." She looked back at him, confused. He smiled at her, a real, genuine smile. Something about it made her feel calm, as if everything was going to be okay. She hesitated for a moment before bolting out of the restaurant, but not before casting one last glance at Liam. She didn't know why, but the thought of not seeing him again left a strange ache in her chest. Later that evening, back in her tiny apartment, Emma collapsed onto the couch, still feeling the weight of her mistake. She groaned into the throw pillow. Jenny would never let her live this down. But the memory of Liam's smile lingered, and it made her wonder if maybe, just maybe, she'd crossed paths with someone important. If only she knew the truth. What she didn't realize was that Liam Parker wasn't just a random guy at a blind date. He was the CEO of a tech company, a millionaire, and he had just met someone who would unknowingly change his life forever. And Emma's story was only just beginning. The next morning, Emma woke up feeling like the entire day before had been a strange dream. She kept replaying the events in her head. How she had mistakenly taken the wrong luggage at the airport, how she had sat at the wrong table at the restaurant, and how she had met Liam Parker, who she thought was just some quiet guy, but who turned out to be someone far more important. She groaned as she sat up in bed, rubbing her eyes. The events of the night felt surreal, but the guilt was real. She had made such a fool of herself, hadn't she? The message from Jenny about Kevin still lingered in her phone, and now, all Emma could think about was the possibility of seeing Liam again. She had never been the type to get caught up in fantasies, but there was something about him, something warm and intriguing, that made her wish the evening had gone differently. Was there any way she could redeem herself? After all, he had been kind, understanding even when she had bolted out of the restaurant in embarrassment. But how could she even begin to explain herself? She wasn't exactly in a position to make excuses. Emma sighed and shook her head. She had a busy day ahead, with shifts at the diner and no time to dwell on the past. But as she walked to work, a sense of unease settled over her. She couldn't stop thinking about the odd connection she had felt with Liam. She had no idea what he saw in her, but something told her this wasn't the last time they would meet. Maybe, just maybe, they were fated to cross paths again. The next morning, Emma woke up to a text notification from Liam. Her heart skipped a beat as she unlocked her phone, almost holding her breath. The message was short but sweet. "Hi Emma, no need to apologize. It was actually kind of funny. I'd love to grab that coffee sometime. How about tomorrow?" Emma stared at the screen for a moment, trying to process what she had just read. Was this really happening? Was Liam Parker, the CEO, actually agreeing to meet with her? She quickly typed back, her fingers trembling slightly. "That sounds great. Tomorrow works for me. Where should we meet?" She hit send, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. The fact that he had responded so quickly made her feel both hopeful and scared. She had no idea what she was getting herself into, but the thought of seeing him again sent a rush of warmth through her chest. For the rest of the day, Emma tried to focus on work, but her mind kept drifting back to Liam. She couldn't stop wondering what he was really like. What kind of person was he behind the business suits and the fancy lifestyle? Was he kind and down to earth, or was he just another rich guy who thought he could do whatever he wanted? As the hours passed, Emma tried to shake off the nervous energy buzzing in her chest, but it wasn't easy. She knew she was overthinking things, but her curiosity about Liam was overwhelming. She couldn't help but replay their last meeting in her mind. His soft smile, the way he had looked at her with genuine interest, as though he was really listening to what she had to say. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced before. After finishing her shift, Emma quickly freshened up before heading to the coffee shop. She stood in front of the mirror for a moment, trying to calm her nerves. She wasn't used to dressing up for anyone, let alone a millionaire CEO, but she wanted to look her best. She decided on a simple outfit, nothing too flashy, just something comfortable but nice. As she stepped into the coffee shop, her heart began to race. She wasn't sure what to expect, but there was something about the thought of meeting Liam that made her feel both excited and uncertain. She spotted him sitting by the window, his posture relaxed, a cup of coffee in front of him. He looked up as she walked in, and his face lit up with a smile. "Hey Emma, I'm glad you made it," he said, standing up to greet her. "I hope I didn't keep you waiting too long." Emma smiled nervously. "No, not at all," she said, sitting down across from him. "I just got here." For a moment, neither of them said anything. There was an awkward silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt more like the calm before a storm, as though both of them were waiting for the other to say something. Finally, Liam broke the silence. "I was really surprised to get your message," he said, his voice soft but sincere. "I wasn't sure if you'd want to meet again after, well, everything." Emma shifted in her seat. "I wasn't sure either," she admitted, feeling a little embarrassed. "I just thought it would be nice to make it up to you after running off like that." Liam smiled. "It's all good," he said. "I'm glad you reached out. It takes guts to be honest, especially in a situation like that." Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her. He didn't seem upset at all, and that made her feel a little more at ease. As they chatted, Emma began to feel a connection she hadn't expected. She found herself talking about her life, about growing up in a small town, her passion for art, her dream of one day owning an art studio. Liam listened intently, asking thoughtful questions and sharing stories of his own. He talked about his work in tech, the challenges he faced in building his company, and how he sometimes felt like he was constantly in the spotlight. "It's not easy, you know," Liam said, taking a sip of his coffee. "Everyone expects you to have it all figured out just because of what you do. But the truth is, I still have no idea what I'm doing half the time. Emma laughed, surprised at how relatable he was. I think that's something everyone can relate to, she said. We all have moments where we don't have everything together. Liam nodded, his smile softening. Yeah, exactly. The conversation flowed easily after that, and Emma couldn't help but feel like they were on the same wavelength. She was starting to see a different side of Liam, one that wasn't just the polished CEO, but a man with his own insecurities, his own dreams, and his own struggles. As the evening went on, Emma felt more and more comfortable around him. It was strange how natural it felt to be in his presence. They talked about everything and nothing, from their favorite movies to their hopes for the future. By the time the evening came to a close, Emma found herself reluctant to leave. I had a great time, she said, standing up to gather her things. Thank you for inviting me. Liam stood up as well, his eyes meeting hers. I'm glad you came, he said, a warm smile on his face. I'd like to do this again sometime, if you're up for it. Emma felt a rush of excitement at the thought. I'd like that, she said, smiling back at him. As she left the coffee shop, she couldn't help but feel that something had shifted. It wasn't just about the coffee or the conversation, it was about the connection they had shared. She didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in a long time, Emma felt hopeful about the future. The next few days felt like a whirlwind for Emma. She couldn't stop thinking about Liam and the coffee date they had shared. It wasn't just the conversation, though it had been easy and effortless. It was the way he had listened, the way he had seemed genuinely interested in her life. She found herself checking her phone constantly, hoping for another message from him, and each time her heart skipped a beat when she saw his name pop up. She knew she shouldn't get ahead of herself, but she couldn't help it. She was drawn to him in a way that was both exciting and terrifying. Liam had texted her the morning after their meeting, asking if she wanted to grab dinner the following week. Of course, she had said yes, and now, she was eagerly waiting for their second date. It was all happening so quickly, but she couldn't deny that she felt a strong connection to him. She had no idea what he saw in her, a waitress with big dreams and an even bigger sense of insecurity, but there was something there, something she couldn't quite explain. As she prepared for their dinner, Emma found herself nervously pacing around her apartment, unsure of what to wear. She wanted to look good, but not too good, and definitely not like she was trying too hard. She settled on a simple black dress she had worn to a few family events and a pair of modest heels. She didn't want to be flashy, but she also didn't want to look like she hadn't put in any effort. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that this wasn't about impressing Liam. This was about being herself, and that was enough. When she arrived at the restaurant, she saw Liam already waiting at a corner table. He was dressed casually this time, wearing a crisp button-up shirt and a pair of jeans. His hair was slightly messy, but it only made him look more approachable. He stood up when he saw her, his eyes lighting up as he greeted her. Hey, Emma, you look amazing, he said, his voice warm and sincere. Emma felt her cheeks flush at the compliment, and she smiled nervously. Thanks, you look great too. She sat down across from him, trying to calm her racing heart. So, how's everything going? She asked, hoping to start the conversation on a casual note. It's been a pretty busy week, Liam replied, leaning back in his chair. Work's been a little hectic, but I'm glad I could make time for this. How about you? How's the diner going? Emma shrugged. Same old, same old. But I can't complain, you know? It keeps me busy. I've been working on some sketches, trying to build up a portfolio for my art studio idea. Liam raised an eyebrow. That's amazing. I had no idea you were so serious about your art. I'm sure you'll get there. It sounds like a dream. Emma smiled softly. It is. It's just hard to find the time, especially with everything else going on. But I try to make it work. She paused for a moment, then added, I'm just not sure if it'll ever actually happen. Liam leaned forward slightly, his gaze intense. Why not? You've got talent, Emma. You just need to believe in yourself a little more. His words hit her in a way she hadn't expected. She had heard similar things before, but coming from him, it felt different, real, genuine. She swallowed, unsure of how to respond. She had never been the type to get compliments easily, especially not from someone like Liam. They were from two different worlds, and she couldn't shake the feeling that one day, he would realize that. But for now, she didn't want to ruin the moment. Thanks, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. The conversation continued to flow easily, And the more they talked, the more Emma realized how much she enjoyed spending time with Liam. It wasn't just his wealth or his status that drew her in. It was his authenticity, the way he wasn't afraid to open up, to show vulnerability. As the evening wore on, Emma found herself more and more comfortable in his presence, feeling like maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just a fluke. She wasn't sure what was happening between them, but it felt right. The night ended with Liam walking her to her car, just like he had the last time they met. "I had a really great time tonight, Emma," he said, his voice soft. "I'm glad we did this." Emma smiled up at him. "Me too. It was really nice." There was a brief pause before he spoke again, his voice serious. "I hope we can do this again soon." Emma felt her heart race as she looked into his eyes. "I'd like that," she replied, barely able to hide the excitement in her voice. She got into her car and drove home, her mind racing with thoughts of what had just happened. She had no idea where this was going, but for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was on the right path. The future felt uncertain, but it also felt full of possibilities. She wasn't sure if she was ready for what was coming, but for the first time in her life, she was ready to take a chance. The next few weeks flew by in a blur for Emma. She and Liam continued to meet up regularly, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. They had coffee dates, dinner dates, and sometimes just long walks in the park, talking about everything and nothing. Emma was still amazed at how easy it was to talk to him. He was different from anyone she had ever met, and the more time she spent with him, the more she realized that he wasn't just the polished, successful CEO that everyone saw. He was thoughtful, kind, and surprisingly vulnerable in his own way. It was clear to her that he wasn't just interested in her because of who she was or what she had, but because of who she truly was, her heart, her dreams, and her honesty. For the first time in her life, Emma felt like she was being seen for who she really was, and it felt incredible. But as much as Emma enjoyed their time together, there was still that nagging feeling in the back of her mind, the fear that she wasn't enough. What would he really want with a girl like her, a waitress from a small diner with big dreams, but not much to show for them? Every time she caught herself thinking like that, she tried to push it aside, but it always crept back in. After all, Liam was successful, wealthy, and surrounded by people who had it all. People who probably knew exactly what they wanted out of life. What did someone like him see in her? That thought lingered, but she didn't want it to overshadow the happiness she felt when she was with him. One evening, as they sat together at a cozy little restaurant, Liam looked at her with a serious expression. "Emma, I need to talk to you about something," he said, his voice uncharacteristically quiet. Her heart skipped a beat. "What's wrong?" she asked, a little concerned. "Nothing's wrong," he reassured her, though his eyes betrayed a hint of worry. "But there's something I've been wanting to tell you." Emma waited, her breath held as she looked at him. "I've been thinking a lot about us, and about what I want for the future," Liam continued. "I've been in this high-powered world for so long, and I've built my company from the ground up, but lately, I don't know, something's been missing." Emma's chest tightened. Was he going to say that he didn't want to see her anymore? That maybe they were from two different worlds, and this wasn't going to work out? "I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think you're that missing piece," Liam said, his voice soft but firm. "You make me feel like there's more to life than just work and success. You've shown me that there's real joy in the little things, like spending time with someone who's real, who cares about the same things I do. You've reminded me of who I really am." Emma's heart fluttered in her chest. She was speechless for a moment, unsure of how to respond. "Liam," she started, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know what to say. I didn't expect that." He smiled softly, reaching across the table to take her hand. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know how much you mean to me." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She hadn't realized how much she had been holding back, how much she had been afraid to let herself fall for him. But now, hearing those words from him, it felt like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. I care about you too, Liam," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "More than I ever thought I could care about someone." Liam squeezed her hand gently, a soft, tender smile on his face. "I'm glad to hear that," he said, "because I want to take this slow. I want to be with you, Emma. I'm not looking for just a fling or a casual relationship. I want something real. I want us to build something together." The sincerity in his eyes took her breath away. She had never heard anyone speak to her like that before, and it made her heart swell with hope. Could this be real? Was she really ready to take that step? As they finished their dinner, the conversation flowed easily again, but this time, there was a new sense of understanding between them, a deeper connection that Emma couldn't deny. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid. She had found someone who cared about her, someone who saw her for who she truly was. And maybe, just maybe, she could finally allow herself to believe in the possibility of a future together. The night ended with a quiet walk outside the restaurant, the cool evening air brushing against her skin. They stopped in front of her car, and Liam kissed her gently on the cheek. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said softly. "Good night, Emma." "Good night, Liam," she replied, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. As she drove home that night, Emma felt a sense of peace that she hadn't known in years. Maybe the future wasn't so uncertain after all. Maybe it was full of promise. And as she thought about the days ahead, she realized that for the first time in her life, she was willing to take a chance on love. The days following their conversation were filled with a new sense of possibility for Emma. She found herself waking up each morning with a smile on her face, her thoughts occupied by Liam and the connection they had. It was still early days, but the way he looked at her, the way he made her feel seen and understood, gave her a sense of warmth she had never experienced before. She started to believe in the idea of a future, of a life that was more than just surviving, but thriving. Liam continued to call, text, and plan dates, making an effort to integrate her into his world. They went on hikes, visited art galleries, and had dinner at places that felt like something out of a movie. But each time, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't quite belong in his world. As their time together continued to unfold, she kept questioning whether she was good enough for him. The doubts she had pushed aside before began to creep back in. She was just a waitress from a small diner, struggling to make ends meet, while Liam was a successful CEO with a multi-million-dollar company. What if, one day, he realized they were from two different worlds, that they didn't belong together? She had never had someone like him care about her before, and part of her was terrified it was all too good to be true. But every time she saw him, every time they talked, her heart told her something different. Maybe, just maybe, this was real. On one of their weekend dates, Liam took her to a small, quiet cafe nestled in the corner of the city, a place he said he liked to visit when he needed to think. They sat in a cozy corner booth, sipping coffee and talking about their plans for the future. "So, I've been thinking," Liam said, looking at her across the table, his eyes serious but kind. "You've mentioned before that you want to open an art studio, right?" Emma nodded, her heart fluttering slightly. "Yeah, it's always been my dream. I want to make a space where people can come and feel inspired, where they can just create and be themselves." Liam smiled, his gaze softening. "That sounds incredible. You should do it, Emma. I really believe in you." Emma's heart swelled at his words, but then the familiar wave of doubt hit her again. "I don't know if I can," she admitted, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I mean, I barely have enough money to pay rent some months, let alone start something as big as an art studio. It feels like such a huge leap." Liam reached across the table, gently placing his hand on top of hers. "I know it seems scary, but you've got something special, Emma. You've got the talent, the passion, and you don't have to do it alone. I'm here for you. Whatever you need, I'll help you make it happen." Emma looked into his eyes, surprised by the depth of sincerity she saw there. She had never had someone believe in her this much, let alone offer to help. She wanted to believe him, wanted to take that leap, but the fear of failure still lingered. "I don't want to rely on you," she said quietly, pulling her hand away slightly. "I need to do this on my own. I don't want to feel like I'm taking advantage of your kindness." Liam looked at her for a long moment, his expression gentle but firm. "Emma, this isn't about me helping you because I feel sorry for you. It's because I believe in you. I believe in what you're capable of. You don't have to carry this weight alone." Emma felt tears sting her eyes as she looked at him. For so long, she had convinced herself that she wasn't worthy of love, of help, of anything good. But Liam was showing her a different truth, one she wasn't sure how to accept. "I don't know if I'm ready," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But maybe, just maybe, I can try." Liam smiled, a small but genuine smile, and squeezed her hand. "That's all I'm asking, Emma. Just try." As the evening went on, Emma felt a sense of peace settle over her, like a burden had been lifted. She didn't know what the future would hold, But for the first time, she felt like she wasn't alone. Liam was there for her, and maybe, just maybe, she could believe in herself too. They finished their coffee and walked out of the cafe hand in hand, the world around them feeling a little bit brighter, a little bit more hopeful. Emma didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't ready to let go of this feeling, of this connection they shared. It felt like a dream she didn't want to wake up from. As they said their goodbyes that evening, Liam kissed her gently on the cheek. "I'll see you soon," he said softly. Emma smiled, her heart full. "I'll be waiting," she replied, already looking forward to what was next. As she drove home that night, Emma felt a quiet confidence settling in her chest. She had a lot of work ahead of her, but with Liam by her side, maybe the impossible wasn't so impossible after all. Weeks passed, and Emma found herself starting to make real strides toward her dream. With Liam's encouragement, she started sketching out plans for her art studio, looking into small spaces for rent, and researching the logistics of making it a reality. Liam had kept his word, offering to help in any way he could, but she had insisted on doing it on her own. Still, his support was invaluable. He would check in with her regularly, offering advice and helping her navigate through some of the more complicated aspects of starting a business. His belief in her fueled her determination, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she could actually make her dreams come true. But even as she took these small steps forward, the doubts that had plagued her for so long still lingered. She couldn't help but wonder, what if this wasn't enough? What if her dream was just a fantasy that would crash down around her? And what about Liam? He was so successful, so driven. Was he just being kind, or did he truly see something in her? She tried to push those thoughts aside and focus on the positive progress she was making. But there were moments when the fear of failure crept in, quiet and insistent. Then, one evening, Liam invited her to one of his company's charity galas. It was a black tie event, and the idea of attending something so high-profile made Emma feel a little out of place. But Liam had reassured her that he wanted her there, that she was his date, and he didn't want her to feel uncomfortable. "You're going to look amazing," he had said with a smile. "I'll be right by your side the entire time." Emma appreciated the gesture, but the thought of being in a room full of millionaires and business tycoons made her uneasy. She was used to the quiet, low-key comfort of her apartment or the diner, not the glitz and glamour of a fancy gala. But Liam had been so kind, so supportive, that she couldn't bring herself to say no. She agreed, albeit with a hint of nervousness. On the night of the gala, Emma stood in front of her mirror, taking in the sight of herself in the elegant dress she had picked out. It was simple, but it felt special. She had never worn something like this before, and she couldn't help but feel a little out of her depth. But she had promised herself she would give it a shot, and for Liam, she was willing to step outside her comfort zone. When Liam arrived to pick her up, she was stunned. He looked as handsome as ever, dressed in a sharp tuxedo, his hair perfectly styled. His smile softened when he saw her, and he couldn't hide the pride in his eyes. "You look incredible," he said, his voice full of admiration. Emma felt her cheeks flush. "Thank you. You don't look too bad yourself," she said, trying to hide the nervousness in her voice. As they arrived at the gala, Emma felt like all eyes were on her. She tried to calm her racing heart, reminding herself that Liam had invited her for a reason. He didn't care that she wasn't part of the elite crowd. He cared about who she was. She clung to that thought as they walked through the grand doors, the sound of elegant chatter and clinking glasses filling the air. As they entered the ballroom, Liam's presence seemed to command attention. People greeted him with respect, and Emma couldn't help but feel out of place as she stood by his side, unsure of how to fit into this world. Liam must have noticed her discomfort, because he leaned in and whispered, "You're doing great. Just be yourself." Emma smiled at him, grateful for his reassurance. She didn't know what was going to happen tonight, but she felt a little more at ease with him by her side. Throughout the evening, she realized that despite the opulence and luxury of the event, it wasn't the wealth or the status that mattered. It was the way people treated each other, the genuine connections they formed. As Liam introduced her to a few of his colleagues, she found herself talking more comfortably than she had expected, and, for the first time, she didn't feel so out of place. She was starting to see the people in Liam's world not as untouchable figures, but as human beings with their own struggles and dreams, just like her. As the night went on, Liam stayed close by her side, never leaving her alone in a crowd. She couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude toward him. He wasn't just offering her help with her dream. He was showing her a side of life she had never imagined, a life where she didn't have to hide who she was, where she could embrace her worth and build a future she was proud of. Later, as the evening wound down, Liam pulled her to the side. "I'm so glad you came tonight," he said, his voice soft. "You fit in perfectly here." Emma smiled, feeling a surge of warmth in her chest. "Thank you for believing in me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam took her hand in his gaze sincere. "I don't just believe in you, Emma. I believe in us." The words took Emma by surprise. It wasn't just about her dream anymore. It was about the two of them, building something together, side by side. She hadn't expected it to feel so real, so effortless. As they left the gala hand in hand, Emma couldn't help but feel like she was stepping into a new chapter of her life. One full of promise, support, and most importantly, love. The future still felt uncertain, but with Liam by her side, Emma was ready to take on whatever came next. In the weeks that followed, Emma found herself falling deeper into a world she never imagined possible. Every moment with Liam felt like a new discovery, about herself, about him, and about the future that was slowly taking shape before her. Liam's support never wavered, and his belief in her dreams became the foundation on which she started to build her own future. She had signed a lease for a small, cozy space, the first step toward opening her art studio. It wasn't much, but it was hers, and that was enough. She could already picture the walls filled with paintings, the laughter of people enjoying the space she had created. It felt real now, no longer just a dream. But as excited as she was about the future, there were still moments when she felt insecure. What if she couldn't make it work? What if opening her studio was a mistake? The questions were always there, lurking in the back of her mind, but she pushed them away as best as she could. Liam was always there to reassure her, to remind her that she didn't have to do it alone. He had become her rock, her constant source of strength. One afternoon, as she was painting in her small apartment, she received a call from Liam. "Hey, Emma," he said, his voice light, but with an underlying tone of excitement. "I was thinking, how would you feel about a little surprise? I've been planning something, and I want you to be a part of it." Emma raised an eyebrow, curious. "A surprise? What is it?" "I can't tell you just yet," Liam replied with a playful tone. "But trust me, you're going to love it. I'll pick you up at 6 tonight, and I'll explain everything then." She laughed softly, intrigued. "All right, I'll be ready." Later that evening, when Liam arrived to pick her up, he was all smiles, his usual calm demeanor replaced with a playful energy that made her smile. She couldn't remember the last time she had seen him so excited about something. "What's going on?" she asked, laughing. "You'll see soon enough," he replied, his eyes sparkling. They drove in silence for a while, with Emma trying to guess where they were going. Finally, they arrived at a building downtown that she didn't recognize. It was a sleek, modern structure with large windows and a sign that read Gallery 56. Emma's heart skipped a beat. A gallery? Are we going to an art show? Liam grinned as he opened the door for her. "Not just any art show. This one's yours." Emma's breath caught in her throat. "Mine?" "Yes," Liam said, taking her hand in his. "This is your art studio, Emma. I've been working with a few people to make it happen, and tonight, we're celebrating the launch." Emma's mind was racing as she looked at him, trying to process what he had just said. This was real. This was happening. Liam had made her dream come true. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked around the gallery space, which was already filled with her paintings, framed and hanging on the walls. There were people milling around, admiring her work, talking to each other and sipping drinks. It felt surreal, like she had stepped into a dream she had been holding on to for so long. "I can't believe this," she whispered, turning to Liam, who was watching her with a smile on his face. "I didn't expect this. I didn't think I was ready." "You were ready, Emma," Liam said softly. "You just needed to take the first step, and I'm proud of you for doing that." Emma smiled through her tears, overwhelmed with emotion. She had worked so hard for this moment, and now, it was finally here. It was everything she had hoped for and more. The evening continued with laughter, conversation, and compliments on her work. It was a celebration, not just of the gallery opening, but of the journey she had taken to get here. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, but in this moment, she felt like anything was possible. As the night wore on, Liam pulled her aside, his expression serious. "Emma, there's one more thing I want to say," he began, his voice low. "I know we've been taking things slow, but I just need you to know something. I love you. I love who you are, and I believe in everything you're doing. You're the reason I feel like my life has meaning again." Emma's heart skipped a beat at his words. She hadn't expected him to say that, but in her heart, she knew it was true. "I love you too, Liam," she said softly, her voice full of emotion. "More than I ever thought I could love anyone." Liam's smile was gentle, but there was a depth to it that made Emma feel like everything in her life had led to this moment. "I'm glad we found each other," he said. "I'm excited for everything that's to come." As they stood there, surrounded by her art and the people who believed in her, Emma realized that the future wasn't something to fear, it was something to embrace. And with Liam by her side, she felt like she could take on anything. The night ended with them holding hands, walking through the gallery, their hearts full of love and hope for what was to come. Emma knew that this was just the beginning of a beautiful chapter in her life, and she was ready to see where it would take her. The weeks that followed the gallery opening were nothing short of magical for Emma. Her art studio, which had once seemed like a distant dream, was now a vibrant reality. People from all over the city started visiting her space, admiring her work, and even enrolling in her art classes. She felt a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before, and with each passing day, her confidence grew. Liam continued to stand by her, not just as her partner, but as her biggest supporter. He would visit the studio whenever he could, bringing her flowers or simply checking in to make sure everything was going smoothly. They had built a routine together, working, creating, laughing, and dreaming. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. As their relationship deepened, Emma started to feel like she had finally found her place in the world. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She wasn't just someone with big dreams who couldn't make them happen. She was Emma Brooks, the owner of an art studio, a woman who had fought for what she wanted and built a life she was proud of. There were still challenges, of course. There were days when things didn't go as planned, when the pressure of running her own business felt overwhelming. But through it all, Liam was there, his unwavering support reminding her that she wasn't alone. One evening, after closing the studio for the night, Emma and Liam went for a walk through the city. The air was cool, and the streets were quiet, a perfect contrast to the buzz of the day. Liam slipped his hand into hers, and they walked in comfortable silence for a few moments. Finally, Liam spoke up. "You've come so far, Emma," he said, his voice filled with pride. "When I first met you, you were uncertain about everything. But look at you now. You've built something incredible." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Liam. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Liam turned to her, his eyes soft and sincere. "I never doubted you, Emma. You've always had it in you. All I did was remind you of that." Emma felt a lump in her throat as she looked at him. "You're my rock," she whispered. "I don't know where I'd be without you." Liam squeezed her hand gently, his expression tender. "You'd be just fine, Emma. You're strong, and you're capable. But I'm glad I'm here with you, every step of the way." They stopped in front of a small park, where a fountain sparkled under the moonlight. Liam pulled her gently into his arms, and for a moment, everything else faded away. It was just the two of them, standing in the quiet night, surrounded by the city they had come to love. "Emma," Liam said, pulling back slightly to look into her eyes. "There's something I've been meaning to ask you." Emma's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" she asked, her voice soft with anticipation. Liam smiled, a warm, loving smile that made Emma's heart swell. "Will you marry me?" The words hung in the air for a moment, as Emma's mind raced. She had known for a long time that Liam was the person she wanted to spend the rest of her life with, but hearing those words come from him took her breath away. She stared into his eyes, seeing the sincerity and love reflected there. It felt like everything in her life had led up to this moment. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you." Liam's face lit up with a smile so bright that Emma's heart seemed to skip a beat. He pulled her close, kissing her gently, and in that moment, everything felt perfect. The world around them didn't matter. All that mattered was the love they shared and the life they were going to build together. They stood there for a few more moments, holding each other, letting the weight of the moment sink in. It wasn't just the proposal that made it so special. It was the realization that they had come so far together. From the first awkward meeting at the restaurant to building her art studio, to this moment right now, they had built something beautiful together. The future was uncertain, as it always was, but with Liam by her side, Emma knew she could face anything. They walked back to her apartment hand in hand, talking about their future, dreaming about the family they would have, and the life they would share. As they reached her door, Liam stopped and turned to her. "I love you, Emma," he said softly. "I always will." Emma smiled, her heart full. "I love you too, Liam," she said. "More than I ever thought I could love anyone." And as they shared one last kiss that night, Emma knew that this was just the beginning. They had a lifetime ahead of them, full of love, dreams, and the certainty that together, they could overcome anything.